Alright, ready? Watch this.
We got an upgrade! Hi, how's it going everybody? Anime Nub here, and welcome to our first reaction recap. So it's about bloody time that we finally got some better equipment. Me and the guys have actually been deciding on, for the last week, what kind of equipment we should get. And we ultimately decided that based on how the quality has been with our reactions, that we were going to get a new camera, a new mic, and new lighting as well. So, yeah. So, hopefully you guys can notice a difference from this. We won't know until we actually edit our videos. But, yeah, I hope that the quality has greatly improved, and this is essentially the setup that we're going to use for reaction videos from here on out. If you're actually curious of what we've been using so far, I actually have with me the mic that we've been using, or I've been using anyway. Yeah, it's a blue ice mic. Was only $39. You can pretty much get them anywhere you can within the nearest Walmart that's closest to you. And, I mean, this little guy has actually done pretty well compared to the mic that's on my camera. The thing that we've actually been using to videotape myself has been my camera, which is a Galaxy S8 Android phone. And we definitely had a weird setup. I'll actually show you what we've been using. So pretty much what we've been doing is we've been having our little makeshift stand here along with this little iPhone holder, and we've been all we've been doing is just doing that. And that's pretty much it. So not really all that fancy from how we've set everything up. So yeah, if you definitely like the improvements that we've done as far as the quality of the video that we're doing right now, feel free to comment on what you think of it. Whether you think the lighting is sufficient enough and it doesn't strain your eyes, or if it's too dark. And yeah, just let us know. Because the whole reason we did this is for you guys. Because we definitely want to give you quality reaction videos. And we don't just want to half-ass everything we're doing. So yeah, pretty much everything that we're doing is for you guys. But that's enough about our equipment. Alright, so today's going to be a little bit different compared to normal, as you can already see. Normally you would see the clip entry slip right here where the reaction video would be, but we're doing something different. Now that does not mean that we're not going to be doing a reaction video for you guys, because we most certainly are going to be sending out Star vs. the Forces of Evil Episode 8 later tonight. But we wanted to do this first before we actually jumped into it. So essentially what we're really doing is something unique, so to say. Before I get into it, let me just mention that if you haven't gotten the chance, please go subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date with our reaction videos. And if you actually enjoy or do enjoy this unique video that we're doing, our reaction recap, because we don't just want to do reactions for you guys. That would be pretty bland. We actually want to put more depth into our channel than what we initially sought out to do. And it also gives us a sense that you guys are enjoying what you're watching, because we really do care if you guys have been enjoying the reactions that we've been doing so far, and it gives us motivation to actually want to do more and to better improve our reactions for you guys. So if you haven't yet, go subscribe real quick and we'd really appreciate it. Anyway, I've been tasked with the duty of reviewing the show Star vs. the Forces of Evil based upon where we're at currently right now within the series. Well, not really tasked, I was kind of more forced to do this. Yeah, so every now and then I'm going to be doing these reaction recaps videos based upon where we're at within the current show that this is for, as well as future shows that we do later on. So you could think of this as a way to quiz or test me on my ability to pick up crucial information as I react to these videos. So information as far as identifying what characters fall into what character roles. So for example, who falls into the category of the protagonist, the antagonist, the tempters, the sidekicks, the minions. You get the idea. As well as what I think the current relationships are between specific characters, where I think we're at, on the storyline timeline of the show, as well as any underlying questions that I may have formed while watching this that have yet to be answered. So in a sense, this way, you, the viewer, get a sense of where I'm currently at intellectually during the show as a blind reviewer. And that way you can get an idea of where my level of knowledge is as I continue to react to these shows or future shows that we're recapping. The reason for this is simple. I mean, let's be honest. You guys have probably already seen Star vs. the Forces of Evil all the way up to where the show is at now. You've probably already seen No Game, No Life, Your Lie in April, etc., etc. So you already know who the characters are that have been introduced, what the plot is, and what the story is for each one of them, as well as what the relationships are currently in each anime and how they were established and who they were established with. So the fact that I'm a complete nub at this stuff as far as anime and cartoons, because if you actually remember from the first video that we uploaded, I have yet to see a lick of anime or specific cartoons such as Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Because I'm a complete noob at this, you can actually see where I think we're at and judge for yourself whether the information that I've gathered has been correct or is on the track of being proven right, or whether I'm just completely way off base. That way you can see if I've actually been paying attention instead of just watching the show, or if I'm just being a complete idiot, which apparently I'm good at doing on a daily basis anyway. Now, there's only one rule that I have been instructed to follow by the team. Now, the rule that the team placed on me is that I'm not allowed to take any notes while I'm watching or reacting to what I'm reacting to. And the reason for that is for two reasons. The first one, it may actually affect my reactions as I watch it. Because if I'm just sitting there like a nerd, writing notes while I'm watching or reacting to the show, it could actually make my reactions dull or boring. Because if I'm sitting there paying attention to taking notes, I'm not paying attention to the actual video. And the second reason is because they actually want to make sure that I'm paying attention to what I'm reacting to. Or it could just be because they're dicks. Don't worry, they actually have to edit these videos so they know what I think of them. So if you have been wondering why I comment at the end of each reaction on what has transpired during the show, it's because that's the only way that I can retain information for me to do these recap reviews. Not as far as creating video flashcards for me to go back to whenever I want to see if what I picked up and what I said, because let's be honest, that would make this job so much easier. Also, just one more thing. Apparently, they made me a script to go off of based upon knowing what to touch on as I do this, but fuck it. I think it's time for me to get some kind of control back to this channel. So, you know what? We're just gonna fucking wing it, like A-Team style. Anyway, I think that's enough dialogue as far as what this video is about, so let's just hop right on into it. So, Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I mean, what can I say? It's very colorful and whimsical. It kind of makes me feel like I'm on some kind of sugar high while doing blow at the same time. So from what I've gathered thus far, Star Butterfly, a reckless princess who all she wants to do is have fun, go on adventures, and just beat the living shit out of monsters, which is apparently a trait that she gets from her own father, is now the next heir to begin using this royal magic wand. Which, if I'm right, is basically something that's handed down from generation to generation within her family. The reason I came to that conclusion is, if you actually remember in the first episode, her mother was actually the first one holding it, and it had a different form to it before Star grabbed it and changed its form to what it is now. So that kind of gave me the sense that her mother was the previous owner of the wand, and because of that, it's made me think that this is some kind of fairly heirloom that's passed on to the next daughter or male. I don't know if there's even a male within their family that's actually used it. Well, it seems pretty clear. Star Butterfly is not good at controlling it at certain times. Or that's really what I'd like to say. It's clear that she knows how to use it as far as fighting and for other miscellaneous tasks, but there are moments where we see her mess up spells, or just showing that she's just not responsible enough to actually use it and handle it. Now, apparently this wand changes form based upon the nature of the person that's actually holding it. So light if it's in the hands of someone good, or dark or corrupted if it's in the hands of someone evil. Now, thanks to the observation of Ruben, which I'm glad that he pointed this out, otherwise I would have completely missed it, apparently it only works if it's in the hands of someone that's from her dimension. Because if we remember, during the episode that Marco was trying to cheer Star up, he actually literally had to grab the wand in order to tie it up to his fishing pole so that he could lure Ludo's minions to their dimension. However, there was no scene showing it changing form whenever Marco touched it, which you'd think would be of something important to show. So because of that, it must not work if it's in the hands of a human or someone from the Earth dimension. Well, in order for her to begin learning how to use it properly and know how to handle it more responsibly, her parents end up sending her to Earth in the hopes that she actually changes. Otherwise, they would have to send her to what they have referred to countless times as St. O's, or St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses, which is apparently like a jail for evil princesses. Well, because apparently she can't be trusted to act by herself, she's assigned a guide, or in this case, Marco Diaz, a high school student who is apparently deemed as a safe kid and has a interest in Jackie Lynn Thomas, even though he tries to make everyone think that he's some kind of rebellious bad boy who gets a thrill off of dangerous situations, even if that danger is being sent to the principal's office. Lame, right? Well, Marco doesn't really get a choice in this matter, and because of that, he sees Star as the sort of burden or annoyance in his perfect, safe, and boring life. But after their first encounter with Ludo, whose apparent main objective is to get Star's magic wand in order to rule the universe, he senses that Star may be able to bring adventure into his life, and because of that, begins to welcome her into his family, that and because she's literally got nowhere else to go. And over time, he begins to create this sort of close friendship with her, and while at the same time looking out for her as a sort of guardian, as he should be doing anyway as her guide. Though that's probably not why Marco actually helps her out whenever she's in trouble or places both of them in dangerous situations, because let's be real for a moment. Real friends, or true friends, stay by your side no matter what, whether it's through tough or, in this case, dangerous situations. That's only natural. I wish I had friends like that. My friends are just assholes. Also, it seems Star's parents weren't totally irresponsible in sending her to another dimension without some sort of tool or guide to help her train. For example, Star actually has this gigantic book full of spells at her fingertips that she actually does begin using, even if it was only to help fix Marco's broken hand in the episode where he had to one-up a preschooler. Which, I mean, come on. If you feel like you need to beat up a preschooler or someone who's younger than you to prove that you're actually better than them, there's something seriously wrong with you. Granted, that brat needed to be curb stomped. There's also what seems to be this type of keeper of the book, Glossaric, because, you know, it's in his name. So he might be able to help train Star in better utilizing the wand and the spells that she can cast with it. But we'll have to see, because it seems based on her personality, she's not really big into studying. He also knew a lot about Star's transformation when Marco was trying to look for a way to bring her back to her senses. So he might also be useful in cases where Marco just might be a little bit out of his league. Which brings up another thing. Apparently there's more to Star than just being able to cast spells. For example, that transformation of hers when she was experiencing puberty. I mean, granted, I don't know if everybody on Muni does the same thing when they go through puberty, so I can't say if this is unique only to Star. But nonetheless, it makes you think that is there more to Star than what she lets on? Now, for the show itself, whether it's a cartoon or a movie, every story runs on some kind of central storyline that outlines the core of the story being portrayed. So think of it like of a diagram. First, you have the main character, who almost always has some kind of goal to achieve. But that path to that goal is always blocked by the antagonist, or in this case, the villain. At some point during the story, a crisis flag will occur, which will either affect the protagonist, the antagonist, or a third-party character. It can really be any one of them. And it's at this point that the protagonist will actually confront the antagonist for the last time, typically during a final fight. And this is where the story's climax scene is actually introduced, and the climax character enters the scene to sway the outcome. Now, the climax character is typically usually going to be the protagonist, where they perform some feat that creates the final outcome of the climax and defines how the story will end. But this isn't always the case. Sometimes the climax character can either be a supporting character, it can be a minion, it could be a minor character, for example, or it can be the antagonist themselves. For example, someone who's evil that has a change of heart. Nonetheless, the climax character is actually what ultimately defines the meaning and the impact of the story. After the climax scene, the story's resolution begins to manifest and determines whether the main character achieved their goal or not, and how they really feel about it. And every story, or that's what I like to think anyway, revolves around this sort of central storyline, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil is no different. Right now, based on my understanding, the show has yet to reach its climax stage. So that's why I made the assumption earlier that right now the story is mainly focusing on character development between Star, Butterfly, and Marco Diaz, and as well as the other supporting characters. So who's our protagonist, or in this case, main character? The one who is usually responsible for handling the main situation and the one that's in most need of change emotionally, which is really what defines a protagonist. Well, this is pretty obvious, of course. Star Butterfly. This entire show has been all about her and her training to better utilize the wand and adjusting to life on Earth. However, I haven't really seen her train all that much using the wand, other than just going about freestyling with it, and I haven't really seen what kind of benefit she's getting from training on Earth than she could have been training on Muni, other than learning to communicate better with people. As I said earlier, the main character is typically the one who has a goal to achieve throughout the entirety of the story. In this case, Star Butterfly needs to get better at utilizing the wand and prove to her parents that she is responsible enough to handle the wand and the duties that come with it. She's also the one who we've actually received the most character information about, as far as what kind of person she is. So what is her goal? Well, it's hard to say, because typically a main character already knows at this point what the goal is that they're trying to achieve. But in this case, it seems Star doesn't even know why she's here on Earth. Or at least she doesn't act like it. Because if you remember what I said earlier, the whole reason she's here is so she can better train and utilize her wand. But it seems she's more interested in having fun with Marco on Earth. So if I had to say what her goal is, or come up with a goal that for her, it would have to be her proving to her parents that she is responsible in handling the wand, in fear of being sent to St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses. Now, what about the antagonist? Well, this is pretty obvious. So Ludo fits the bill here. Or should I say Beak? His main objective is to take the wand by any means necessary. So if Star was to lose the wand to the hands of Ludo, that would essentially prove that she wasn't responsible enough to keep it out of the hands of evil. And it's because of this, Ludo is the greatest obstacle that could prevent Star from achieving her goal. So based upon the central storyline, at some point there will be a crisis where Star will have to face Ludo in the climax scene. So could Ludo possibly manage to get the wand from Star? We'll really have to see. Marco Diaz, the safe kid. He's another character that's been on stage with Star throughout all of the episodes that we've seen thus far, which is essentially what defines a main character as. But we have to think about what a main character is in more detail. So a main character is one who has a goal to achieve typically by the end of the show or series. They're usually the ones we receive the most character information about. They undergo growth or change, and they're mostly the ones confronting the antagonist during the climax scene in order to obtain their goal. So far, I have yet to see any signals that he's undergoing any growth or any change, and that's because he's mainly just seems like he's along for the ride. And honestly, there really is no reason for him to undergo any change. We also haven't received the most character information from him like we have with Star, and he doesn't really seem to have a goal in mind other than wanting to experience an exciting life, which by now he's already achieved. Based on the fact that Marco isn't considered a primary character, but also isn't considered a supporting character either, Marco more falls into the realm of being a deuteragonist, or in simple terms, a secondary main character or a sidekick, which more perfectly reflects Marco because he is essentially Star's sidekick, where he switches between supporting and opposing her based on the scenario. By definition, a deuteragonist or a sidekick, in simple terms, is defined as the main character's unconditional loving friend, where they can become frustrated with the protagonist and have doubts about them and what they're trying to do, but they always stand by them. And from what I've seen thus far, that suits Marco more perfectly, as he's Star's best friend. As far as the supporting characters, this is where you would see Ponyhead, Marco's parents, Star's parents, Alfonso, Ferguson, and Glossaric. That's where you would see them come into play, because they're the ones that are aiding, supporting, and providing guidance to the primary main character, Star Butterfly. They're essentially characters that are not neutral nor antagonistic to the story and are seen a noteworthy amount of times throughout the show. Now, characters such as Jackie, Jana, Miss Skulsnick, Brittany, Oscar, Jeremy, they're the ones who are considered minor characters, where they rarely appear or only appear once throughout the story, but affect the plot significantly and can either help or hinder the protagonist. And lastly, we have the minion characters, or those who aid, assist, and serve the antagonist. So they can also be called servants or slaves, and this is where Ludo servants fall into play as well, obviously, because they serve Ludo. Now, there are a bunch of other characters that I didn't cover that fall into their own specific character roles, but I don't want to go too in depth with that, because all I wanted to highlight was my knowledge of the basic characters that have been seen thus far. Also, and this is the most important thing I want to mention, these characters and their roles are not permanent. Remember, this is simply my take of the show and the characters thus far, and these can change at any time as the story progresses. So for example, Jackie Lynn Thomas, who is Marco's crush, she could actually play a more important role as the story progresses and actually begin assisting and aiding Star at times after having improved relations with Marco. So that would essentially bump her up from a minor character to a supporting character. So keep that in mind. Lastly, there are some questions that I have with the show that I hope are answered as we continue to finish Season 1, and if not by then, hopefully with Season 2. Now, you might already know the answers to some of these questions, but this at least gives you an idea of what I picked up so far while watching this. The first question is Star's head accessory, the horns. Now, the only reason this caught my eye is because of the symbolism behind what a pair of head horns mean, which is either evil or demonic in nature. And that really doesn't fit Star's profile at all. So I'm wondering if she only just bought these because they were cute, or if there's more of a significance behind them. The second question is St. O's. Now, the show has so far hinted that there's this place that wayward princesses or bad princesses are sent to in order to be reformed. But it's only been name dropped, and I don't know anything else about it. So, is there going to eventually be an episode where Star and Marco have to go there? Because if I remember correctly, that's where Ponyhead is currently stationed at right now. So, are they going to go visit her at some point? We'll have to see. The third question is, who is Tom? When Star tried to call her mother to ask for advice nonchalantly, she accidentally dialed this demon-looking guy named Tom, who apparently knew Star pretty well, but Star wasn't as thrilled to see him as he was with her. So, did this Tom guy do something to make Star that upset? The fourth question, Marco's tentacle hand. Now, during the episode where Star accidentally turned Marco's hand into a tentacle, as the tentacle was starting to go back to normal as Marco's hand by the help of Star, the evil within this tentacle actually mentions that he was a part of him now. So does this mean that there might be some repercussions that might affect Marco's well-being? The fifth question, what's under the hood? So apparently within Star's magic wand houses this unicorn on a treadmill. And apparently it's shown to be dead tired when the wand runs out of power, or is close to running out of power, and then fully rejuvenated when that power supply has been reestablished. So does this unicorn play some significance as far as the wand's source of power? The sixth question is Star's transformation and her wings. So I've already said this before, so I'll give the short end of it. Is there more to Star's transformation than what lets on? And could she actually turn back into it? The reason that I mention this is because as a result of the transformation, she now has these wings, which is another thing too. Can these wings actually grow over time? And the last question is the relationship between Muni and monsters, because in episode 7, we get an idea of how Star really sees monsters as vile, evil things, even though Lobster Claw showed signs that there was some good in him, which raised the question that if all monsters that Star is generalizing as evil are really just that, and if there were such a thing as good monsters. Also, the fact that a person's behavior and or opinions are based around the environment that they grew up in, does this mean that all of Muni has this same outlook towards monsters? And if that's the case, why? So that concludes our first recap review for Star vs. the Forces of Evil up to this point. And we will be doing more of these as we get further on in the series, but they will be much more shorter versions because by then we already know what the story is about. The only thing that would really change would be the character roles and positions that characters fall under, as well as any relationships that develop or break up. And if any of the answers, if any of the questions that I've brought up have been answered or unanswered. So the next one that we do will be much, much shorter. The main goal of this was essentially just to give you an idea of where I sit at so far with the show, and to give you an idea of some of the things that I picked up on. So if you actually enjoyed listening to my thoughts of this show so far, feel free to like and subscribe to our channel so that you can continue to stay up to date with videos that we post for you guys. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing this, and we will be uploading our episode 8 reaction video to Star vs. the Forces of Evil once we get done doing this. Even if I have to stay up late, I can sleep anytime I want. It is the weekend after all. And with all that being said, I guess we'll see you guys next time. See ya!